Every Beatles song ranked from least favorite to most favorite. I know that when I usually rank songs from musicians, I typically exclude non-album singles. However, I am not doing that this time. Yes, I will include both album tracks and non-album singles as well. The only tracks I'm not including are the George Martin and the orchestra songs from the Yellow Submarine soundtrack, as they're not really Beatles songs at their core. This list is purely based on how much I enjoy each song. I am not factoring in a song's popularity or impact or any other outside influence. Little Child, it's a bit dodgy. Wild Honey Pie, as excruciating as the song is, there's something about the bizarreness of it that I admire within the White Album experience. Call me biased since it is one of my favorite Beatles albums, but I can't help but think it adds to the rollercoaster of the wildly vast range of sound palettes that are explored throughout that track list. It's a bad song on its own, but I don't really skip it when listening to the White Album unless I'm around a friend. Revolution 9, All Together Now, Dig It, Run For Your Life. Melodically speaking, it is a pretty good tune. It's just that the concept of John Lennon, someone who had a history of abusing women, writing a song that includes lines such as "I'd rather see you dead, little girl," and "Run For Your Life, little girl," is a massive turn off for me. You know my name, Maggie May, boys, for you blue, there's a place, please, Mr. Postman. Every time I hear this cover song or any other variation or rendition of the original, I can't help but think of that one Vine that went viral back in the day. It's of course not the Beatles' fault, it's just how it is. It's still a fine cover though, I wouldn't necessarily call it a skip. Dizzy Mizzy Lizzy, when the Beatles did rock and roll, it was always a hit or miss for me. This one's one of the biggest misses. Bad Boy, I'm Down, good morning, good morning. It's a complete mess. Everybody's trying to be my baby. I'm a loser. I don't want to spoil the party. Honey, don't hold me tight. Kansas City, hey, 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 hey. Long Tall Sally, I call your name. Matchbox, the inner light, slow down. Every little thing. When I get home, another girl. Babies in black. Mr. Moonlight, she's a woman. What you're doing, devil in her heart. Roll over Beethoven. You really got a hold of me. Chains, A Taste of Honey, One After 909. This track sees the band going back to the rock and roll roots that quite a few tracks from their early albums consisted of, except this time the band has improved so much since those early days that this track isn't as big of a turnoff as most of those rock and roll tracks they used to make. However, it's still one of the weakest cuts from Let It Be, Money That's I Want, Tell Me What You See, I'll Be Back, Not a Second Time, You Can't Do That, I'll Cry Instead, I Wanna Be Your Man, Baby It's You, Act Naturally, Can't Buy Me Love, Why Don't We Do It in the Road, I've Got a Feeling, This Boy, I'll Get to You Now and Then. I think John's refrain is absolutely gorgeous, easily the best part of the entire track. I just find the instrumental progression to be pretty basic, and I don't find what the other members add to the song in general to be all that fascinating. She's Leaving Home, out of all the Beatles songs out there, this is the one I have the most mixed feelings towards. I do appreciate what it adds to the Sgt. Pepper's tracklist in a sense, being one of the most psychedelic tracks on the album and not following the more upbeat poppy route that other songs like When I'm 64 go into. The guitars are pretty, the strings are quite beautiful, but I just find the call and response vocal lines during the chorus to clash together in a way that's unpleasant. I don't really find any of the vocal melodies in this song to be good either. There are some days when I find this song nice to hear, but other times I get bored by it and skip it entirely. There's no in between. Either way though, I'll never go out of my way to play this track on its own. I Need You, Yes It Is, Don't Bother Me, Tell Me Why, You Like Me Too Much, Fixing a Hole. The tune is quite nice, but I just find the instrumental comparatively insignificant and less exciting than the type of instrumentation that the other tracks from Sgt. Pepper's offer. Love Me Do, it's cute, catchy and fun, though it's just lyrically repetitive and insignificant in the grander schemes of the catalogue. Ask Me Why, Rocky Raccoon. I know people tend to dislike it when the Beatles would make silly songs, but I always found a lot of them to be fun and nice, and Rocky Raccoon is an example of that. It may not be one of the best songs on the White Album, but there are still vocal lines from this song that I'm glad are still stuck in my head. The continuous story of Bungalow Bill, You're Going to Lose That Girl, girl, it's only love, I mean mine. I like the transition between the soothing verse and the more upbeat, harmonized chorus. It's only the lack of a strong lyrical direction that draws this song back for me. I've just seen her face, I saw her standing there the night before, free as a bird, Her Majesty. I feel like this would genuinely be one of the best songs in the Abbey Road medley if it were extended to a minute long. The long and winding road, If I Fell, Flying. This instrumental really showcases how much the instrumentation in the tracks had improved since the early Beatles days. It feels like I'm getting transported into a wormhole, but because of how upbeat and joyous the music sounds, for some reason, and this is probably just me, I imagine the dimension this wormhole transports me to as a papier-mâché type of world, sort of like that one King Gizzard album cover. I do wish the song was longer though. She Loves You. This is essentially what Love Me Do does. Fun, catchy and cute, but lyrically repetitive, and the band would vastly improve their music past the release of this song. Things we said today, honey pie, from me to you. Do you want to know a secret? Thank you girl. What goes on? Glass onion, good night. I'm happy to dance with you. Savoy truffle, Dr. Robert. Good song, but the bridge is really the most standout part of the fuck. Good song, but the bridge is really the most standout part of the track. Rock and roll music, no reply, I Want to Hold Your Hand. Yeah, it isn't as excellent as what the band would later release, but it's still such a happy, inoffensive love song. It's impossible to not get infatuated by the joy in Paul and John's vocals. Polythene Pam, P.S. I Love You, I Want to Tell You. The guitar riff that begins the song is really great. It's wonderfully psychedelic, though I just think the tune isn't the best that George has come up with. Anytime at all, Julia, Mean Mr. Mustard, Piggies. It's a political song that uses pigs as a metaphor for greedy, wealthy people, which is of course reminiscent of what Pink Floyd would later do on Animals, but disguises its message as a 2-minute tune with the feel of a nursery rhyme. Real love, A Hard Day's Night, Cry Baby Cry, Words of Love, the word, Twist and Shout, It Won't Be Long, I Should Have Known Better, Old Brown Shoe, Only a Northern Song, I Wish It Was on Magical Mystery Tour, Maxwell Silver Hammer. What I find so admirable about the sillier cuts off of Abbey Road is that despite how tongue-in-cheek the lyrics are, sonically speaking they still sound so gorgeous and beautiful. Of course this isn't as beautiful of a song as Octopus's Garden, but the guitars, the synthesizers and the organ are really pretty for a song that's meant to be silly. Blue Jay Way, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, reprise. There was a time when I viewed this as paling in comparison to the opening track, but I have grown to like this song more over time. I think it adds a lot to the Sgt. Pepper's overall narrative and concept, as it has the fictional band saying goodbye to the audience, with the crowd noises really pulling you into the idea of the band saying goodbye right before they play their final song, A Day in the Life. Lovely Rita, Magical Mystery Tour, You Won't See Me, Yellow Submarine. This song's overhated. It's such a fun, silly song that doesn't take itself too seriously. I always felt like Ringo had the most fun personality in the group, and I love how he showcases it so expressively in his songs, and this is one of the prime examples of that. Even though he technically didn't come up with the vocal melody and the lyrics, Ringo just fits the song's vision so much better than if anyone else were to sing it. I also find it funny that this silly song, which borders on being a song for children, is on the same album as Tomorrow Never Knows. Till There Was You. It's a cute acoustic love ballad cover song, but Paul went on to release even better acoustic love songs that are originals. I Feel Fine, All I've Got to Do, 8 Days a Week, Please Me, Misery, Wait, I'm Looking Through You, Because, Sun King. I think the beginning of the song is one of the most beautiful moments on Abbey Road. The guitars are stunningly gorgeous and dreamy, and then there are these other bits of instrumentation and other things that are subtly added, such as the vocal harmonies. If there's anything wrong with this track, it's just that I don't really find the vocal melodies to be as compelling as the instrumental intro. I'll Follow the Sun, Think for Yourself, Ticket to Ride, Paperback Writer, Michelle, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band, She Said, Getting Better, Hello Goodbye. Out of all the sillier, playful beautiful, lyrically tongue-in-cheek songs in the Beatles catalogue. I think this one is one of the most ambitious instrumentally. The instrumentation is really dynamic, flavorful, and progressive. For a song that's lyrically simple and silly, the ballad of John and Yoko being for the benefit for Mr. Kite, I really like the theatrical vibe this song has, and the tune is fantastic and sort of reminds me of Pink Floyd's Money. We can work it out, all my loving, dig a pony, she came in through the bathroom window, carry that weight. I'm in love with the hopeful and uplifting atmosphere that the harmonious, massive chorus weighs. It's all too much, sexy, Sadie. When I'm 64, I remember in my video where I went over the most overrated albums of all time, when talking about the Sgt. Pepper's album, I did say that there were some tracks that sounded standard for a 60s song, despite how good those songs still are, and I want to admit that I don't really fully agree with that specific statement in that video anymore, especially since hearing this song back now. The instrumentation is pretty unique for its time, especially within the 60s pop mainstream. I feel like if any other band had come up with this song, the instrumentation behind it would be your standard use of guitars, bass, and drums, possibly with some background vocals, but not much else. But the Beatles decided to back up Paul's incredibly endearing tune with additional tubular bells and clarinets that sounds like horns. Don't pass me by. This is one of the most underrated songs on the White Album for me, and frankly one of the best songs Ringo wrote for the band. It's such a contagiously happy tune, and the production is more immaculate than people give it credit for. Day Tripper. At the time it was released, it did contain one of the best guitar riffs Beatles has put together, but I think the Beatles' music would go on to feature better riffs than this, so I'm not really bought into the famous idea of Day Tripper containing one of the best guitar riffs in rock history. But with that said, the riff is really what makes the song and is the main reason why it is placed so high compared to the band's other songs released during the early to mid stages of their career. And I go to him. Vocally, Arthur Alexander definitely surpasses this cover. However, I do think the guitar tones on the Beatles' rendition are genuinely more delightful than the original. Obladi Oblada, I find it so ridiculous that this song is mentioned in the worst songs of all time Wikipedia page. If you genuinely think this is a bad song, then you just hate having fun. You've got to hide your love away. I think out of all the songs in the Beatles catalogue, this is the one that grew on me the most during the process of making this video. I feel like during the early to mid 60s era of the Beatles, it was really the more stripped back cuts that spoke to me the most. Well, I at least preferred them a lot over the more rock and roll tracks, and I'm now realizing that this is one of the greatest Beatles songs that goes into this more stripped back acoustic lane. Hey Bulldog, Your Mother Should Know, If I Needed Someone. Songs like this makes me sad about the fact that John and Paul didn't utilize George more often on the Beatles albums, because whenever he made a song, it was always one of the best tracks on their respective albums. Gets Back, Octopus's Garden, the prettiest and simultaneously one of the silliest songs Ringo made for the Beatles. Good Day Sunshine. I don't know why people don't like this song. I think it's quite amazing. I love how much the piano adds to the joyous vocal melodies during the chorus. Within Without You. I know a lot of people aren't really crazy about the era where George began incorporating his newfound love for the sitar and traditional Indian music into the Beatles' sound, but personally I really enjoyed this period of his. I think it added a fresh sense of uniqueness to the band's albums. This song in particular is the one that I wasn't into at first, but grew on me a lot over time. It's so wondrous and magical. Lady Madonna, Mother's Nature Son, Long Long Long, possibly the most chillingly beautiful Beatles song ever. I also see it as a precursor to Elliott Smith's sound. You can really hear how much inspiration he drew from this song and George Harrison in general. Got to Get You in My Life, Nowhere Man, That's the World Is at Your Command vocal line stands out in every way possible. Yeah Blues, the instrumental break and George's guitar solo are really what cements this track as being one of my favorites from the White Album. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. I know people are going to be angry at this low placement. Don't get me wrong, I still think it's a wonderful song and frankly one of the best on Sgt. Pepper's, but in my opinion, the band has put out more compelling psychedelic experiences than this. Drive My Car, that piano in the chorus makes the song so much better than than it already is. It's not their best album opener, though I do think it's their most replayable. Dear Prudence, Don't Let Me Down, I really wish it had been included on the Let It Be album. The way the chorus transitions into John's verses each time it comes in is magical. Revolution 1, there's something about stripping the song back and making it acoustic that makes it feel as though it were played at a gathering of friends or within a community, which I think reinforces the song's protest and rebellious lyrics. I can't explain why I get this vibe, since it's not like there's a whole group of people singing together on the recording, but I can easily envision a community singing this song when listening to it. I don't get that same communal atmosphere from the heavier rock version. I guess it could be considered as a hippie song in that sense, and I love her. It's funny how a simple 4-note guitar riff can enhance a song's beauty so drastically. Taxman, both Ringo and Paul absolutely killed it when it came to putting together the punchy beats for the song. The bass line is immediately infectious and the drum groove is fantastic. I also love the comedic yet rebellious tone of the lyrics, as George is literally singing from the perspective of a taxman who wants to tax you for everything you do, such as walking and sitting. Everybody's got something to hide except for me and my monkey. This is such a bombastic, incredibly fun banger. I love how the beginning baits you into thinking it's going to be a standard upbeat Beatles track, but when the beat drops, John is singing his heart out with the loud instrumentation going at a fast pace. If it wasn't for Helter Skelter, then this would be the loudest, most energetic track on the White Album. The Fool on the Hill, Girl, this contains one of the most captivatingly hypnotic vocal melodies that John has ever come up with. Birthday, this is one of the most underrated songs from the second half of their discography in my opinion. It almost has that multi-phased structure that Happiness Is a Warm Gun has, except each section in Birthday is a lot more upbeat, joyous, and radiates such fun vibes that makes you want to dance, whereas Happiness Is a Warm Gun is much darker in tone. Blackbird, this was never initially one of my favorites from the White Album, but I grew to really admire the tune and the lyrics over time, as it has Paul writing a hopeful, sweet song to bring courage and hope to the black women who were fighting for freedom during the civil rights movement. It was always the acoustic guitar that I found a little underwhelming and a bit bland, but I have grown past that, as I do think it is still effective and quite charming, even if I still think it could be improved upon. Help, Two of Us, there's something really endearing, comforting, and heartfelt, yet simultaneously somewhat melancholic about this song that has always captivated me. It has a strong nostalgic feel to it and expresses a wonderful heartwarming sentiment of sharing a close, intimate relationship with someone. Hey Jude, one of the most iconic songs in British music history, it went on to transcend stadiums. The only thing that holds it back for me is that I'm not as crazy about it now as I was when I first heard it, as the song is of course overplayed to death, but the track has long since established itself as a crucial part of British culture, and I love that about it. I Want You, She's So Heavy, Paul's bass lines throughout the entirety of Abbey Road is incredible. It's the album that I think contains Paul's best bass playing, but the bass on this song in particular is so mind-blowing. Martha My Dear, this may be the most adorable track in the entire Beatles catalogue. Yesterday, I feel like Yesterday was the first truly mind-blowing song the band released, even though the band would improve their sound more and more over time after the release of the Help album. Yesterday can still go head to head with some of the best material on their key albums. Oh Darling, I love how Paul completely sings, or I should say shouts, his ass off during the chorus. It really adds to the emotional weight of his lyrics. It really does sound like he nearly broke down and cried and fell down and died. The end. This contains arguably the greatest sentence a band has ever used to close the last song they ever recorded together, and the way the Beatles follow it with an incredibly beautiful instrumental outro after the comparatively heavier, grittier call and response bridge makes for an even more heavenly ending to an already monumental song. Penny Lane and Your Bird Can Sing, I'd take the guitars on this song over those on Day Tripper any day. Norwegian word. Sonically, I see this song as almost going further into what John was trying to do on You've Got to Hide Your Love Away, but with more poetic beauty. Out of all the Beatles songs out there, I feel like this one embodies a late night's vibe the strongest. It also makes me wish the Beatles had written more storytelling songs. I Am the Walrus. I'm sure all of you know about the famous story behind the nonsensical lyrics behind the song. I won't explain it, but I find it really interesting and funny that the bizarreness of the ridiculous lyrics actually heavily emphasizes the surreal atmosphere the song has. I feel like the songs being silly actually works better for the song than if the lyrics were actually serious. Let It Be, All You Need Is Love, You Never Give Me Your Money. I view You Never Give Me Your Money as something like The Happiness Is a Warm Gun of Abbey Road, a multi-phased epic that shifts through different moods and sections. I also hear the verse after the guitar solo as a precursor to the signature Fleetwood Mac sound that would define Rumours and their self-titled album. Come Together. Come Together is the song where I think each member of the group is just on top level. This is where the group's chemistry, musically speaking, is at its best. It has Ringo's incredibly effective drum fills, John's swaggy vocals, George's guitar licks, and the song would just not be complete without Paul's incredibly iconic slick bass line. Everyone is just giving it all here. Love You Too. I really do find Love You Too to be one of the most captivatingly mesmerizing experiences on Revolver, and there's something so straightforward about its existential lyrics that captures the feeling of time slipping away too fast and the urgency to make the most of it that hits really hard for me. I'm so tired, I will. While this may not be the best love song the Beatles have made, I do think it's their cutest love song. It's such a charming melody, and the concept of Paul writing a love song dedicated to his future partner who he has yet to meet is so adorable. Rain. This is probably the most Revolver sounding non-album single in their catalogue. Ringo's drumming and Paul's bassline are also absolutely phenomenal here. Them making a song about rain is also the most British thing that the Fab Four has ever done. Baby You're a Rich Man with a Little Help from My Friends. This is by far my favourite song sung by Ringo in the entire Beatles catalogue. Across the Universe. I think most of us can agree that this contains possibly the best opening line of any Beatles song. I view this as the most brilliantly poetic Beatles song ever. The vivid imagery that John illustrates in these lyrics takes me into surreal places of imagination, and Nothing's Gonna Change My World is one of those lines that is so simple but also so powerful and can be interpreted in so many different ways. You could view it as saying that no matter what painful struggles and difficult obstacles life throws at you, none of that will bring you down or negatively change who you are. Or similarly, you could view it as those things not having much significant meaning anyway, as we are all just small things in the universe and the world will remain the same. But if you don't like your world, then I guess it could be perceived in a more depressing way, as no matter what good or bad things happens to you, none of that will brighten your mood or make you more blue than you already are, as you have reached a state where nothing really matters, nothing can change your world. So the line can be viewed as sad or hopeful depending on how you see your world. But either way, you can still find comfort in the line regardless, and I like to believe that's what John intended. Across the Universe is like musical therapy. I'm Only Sleeping, Eleanor Rigby, Here Comes the Sun, Golden Slumbers, Back in the USSR. This is by far the greatest rock and roll song in the Beatles' discography, and it isn't even a cover. In fact, I'd even go as far to say that it surpasses the majority of the classic amazing rock and roll songs they were covering during the early stages of their career. Tomorrow Never Knows. I think this is the most mindfuck Beatles song ever. It's such a wildly revolutionary, innovative and surreal experience that some of the parts of the instrumental don't even sound like how those instruments are traditionally played. In fact, some moments in the background don't even sound like instruments at all. This song is what I imagine taking the wildest drug you can imagine feels like before you eventually crash out and die. A Day in the Life, Something, Strawberry Fields Forever, Here, There and Everywhere, the most heavenly song that the Beatles have ever made. made. I'm in love with how they created an atmosphere so ethereal and otherworldly with the use of vocal harmonies alone. I imagine it evokes the same sort of heavenly feeling that Paul experiences when he is with the girl described in the song. Happiness is a warm gun. This is the Beatles' Bohemian Rhapsody. Helter Skelter. I love the line, I'm coming down fast but I'm miles above you, which I interpret as a double entendre. The first is the literal meaning, which is what happens when you slide down a helter skelter, coming fast down the slide while being miles above the ground. The second I see as metaphorical. Even if you or aspects of your life, whether it's be your reputation, your skills in a certain area and so on, are in decline, you're still doing a lot better than the people who are documenting your downfall. In my life, I know it isn't one of the Beatles' most groundbreaking or innovative songs, especially compared to something like A Day in the Life, but I find the lyrics and message of In My Life so sentimental and moving, while my guitar gently weeps. This is such an immensely powerful song to me in every aspect. The line, with every mistake we surely must be learning, still remains relevant after all these years, and it's genuinely indescribable how much I absolutely love the vocal melody. Eric Clapton's guitar solo is also what I think might be the best guitar solo in any Beatles song ever, For No One. Bear in mind my number 1 and number 2 spots switch depending on my mood. Right now I'm favoring For No One, but I know that won't be a permanent feeling. This is one of my favorite breakup songs of all time, if not the favorite. This is really where Paul's songwriting is at its best, not only in terms of lyrical ability, but also his incredibly immense talent for crafting vocal melodies, because both the tune and lyrics on this song are 10 out of 10. Not to mention the instrumental to this song is just as intensely beautiful too. I love how melancholic yet elegant the piano sounds, and that French horn solo is even more melancholic and outstanding, as well as sounding sorrowful, gloomy, and managing to express a feeling of loneliness, which of course ties in fittingly with Paul's lyrics. And in her eyes you see nothing, no signs of love behind the tears, cried for no one, a love that should have lasted years. Yeah, we'll never get another lyricist like prime Paul McCartney ever again. For No One is a Baroque pop masterpiece. Please like and subscribe.